We're making this envelope folder today, playing with beautiful vintage papers. I made this flip-flap middle piece last week and added some extra decoration. I'll put links to those earlier videos in the description box below. We've already made these pockets, and today it's this junky notebook. I'll take you through it step by step so that you can do it too, including making some tags. It's going to be a lot of fun. And now's the time to subscribe. I've got lots more projects coming up. I just share my obsession with paper here, and it's lovely to share that with you. We'll finish this folder today and I'll show you all the supplies I use as we go. We're starting by filling this notebook. We made the cover last week. You can see where I folded over just that extra bit of vintage paper. I'm filling it today with a mixture, an eclectic contrasting set of beautiful scrapbook papers. I have some aged pages from a road atlas behind there. Anything you have in your stash that you just feel goes with the design and the feel that you want. I have a little bit of card at the back there, and I'll show you how to bind it in a way that hides some of the seam. I'm using this card in the notebook, but first let's pick some papers. Let's just take a moment to revel in the glory of all of these sumptuous patterns. I've simply pulled out a number of sheets from my stash that I felt had that vintage theme, like this gorgeous botanical rose page, and wow, look at that teal. I love the pattern on that, very delicate. What do you think? Do you like that one? I've also got this one from my mind's eye stack. I like the bird on the doily on the right, and this one's great for writing on. So if you want to be able to write in the notebook, then maybe think about papers that work for you. This spotty pattern is definitely more modern, but I think it still works well with the vintage theme that we're using today. These two beautiful delicate pieces of more of a wedding style from a K&Co stack are something I like to use in my journals. This is the palette of creams and beige and gentle yellows that I've chosen today. So this is the little road atlas that I've pulled from, and you can see the beautiful aging around the edges. And I just look at books and see what sort of paper and texture I like and pull a page or two out. I'll show you how to fold them to size in a minute. Let's just have a look at some of the sheets of paper that I thought about incorporating today. I'm making use of pages that aren't necessarily the right size for this little junky notebook, and I'm making best use of some of the images, like this beautiful little oxeye daisy. Even though the page looks a little bit too tall, I'm okay with it being more narrow than the journal cover, and we're going to do some folding so that we make the most of the image. I'm including some of those delicate pages, the scrapbook sheets, and again you can see that they're slightly shorter, chubbier and fatter than some of the other pages, and I definitely want some book pages in there because I really love the font. I've chosen this one for that texture, that matte feel, which contrasts with some of those smoother scrapbook papers. I had an order recently of about 20 books, which was just amazing. It felt like Christmas when the box arrived, and I've been going through them and choosing what to do with each of the pages from the books. Here's another example, Round the Year in the Garden. So a gorgeous vintage book. I don't know if you can see there, but it's old money in the UK, in England, so it dates it. Some pages there that are prints that have been stuck in because it's so old that they didn't print colour pictures within the book when they made it. So I'm thinking about how to use books like this in my little junky notebook, and they contrast well then with some of the more modern pages and indeed plain pages that I like to include. And here are the pages that I've decided on in the end, including a piece of card at the back. We're going to bind the pages in a way that hides just a little bit of the mess, makes it tidy here, and puts some of the little bit of mess on the back of the notebook, because that will be hidden away when it's in the envelope folder. I'm taking the top of that piece of card and folding it over so it has an extra piece there of about 1.5 centimetres, so that the card is finally ending up the same size as the front cover. And because we took pieces of book page that were taller than the front cover, I'm really just making a few folds here so that I can retain the whole piece I don't want to cut into that lovely image, and I can pull it down and see all of it like that. It's just a little gusset, so just a few little folds. It's as easy as that. Some of the pieces of paper are smaller and don't need any sort of gusset fold, but we just need to work through the 5 or 6 sheets and add a top fold like here. I'm making it crisp because it will make it just a little bit easier when we come to stick it and sew it. And where the sheets of paper, the book pages, were just a bit too wide, I have trimmed it down. On the book page where it was wider, I trimmed on the left here and on the right, and that meant the text was preserved, which is what I wanted to do. And I'm also happy that I'm able to see the whole of this page and all of the text, because I just like the variety of font in my junk journal pages. What you want to do now is take a look at the pages and maybe order them so that you get the most contrast and not have similar pages sitting next to each other. So I like to take a moment just to have an order which appeals. There's no rules really, do whatever you like. But this seems to me like a nice order with the lovely flower imagery at the front, followed by a really lovely vintage book page and the rest of the pages to follow. Take each of your sheets and where we have made a fold, just tuck them under each other. You can see that they are slightly different widths. Obviously none of them are wider than the front cover, but I'm okay with that because that's variety, that's just interest when we open up the little notebook. I'm using a ruler to make sure that they are really butted up to each other, really tightly in position, and then adding my piece of cardstock at the back. So all of those pieces of paper, your pages, are really just folded over at the top, and because we creased them, it should be neatly in position, so it's easy to add holes that we're going to then sew through to bring it all together. Because we've got several sheets in that notebook, that cardstock at the back is now just slightly too long, so all I've done is to just by eye shave a little bit off so that it's not peeping out when we look from the front like this. I'm just going to use regular household string to do some binding, so we'll make a hole from the back there in a second, but I'm making life easy. Let's make sure we make life easy for ourselves by pegging the pages to keep them in place. I'm making a mark with a pencil in the middle and maybe about 3 centimetres either side of that mark, making another 2. We're going to do a figure of 8 binding method, which is what I do when I make my junk journals. I'm using my slightly bent darning needle, which is intentional actually, it is meant to be curved, to punch a few holes, and because I've only got about 5 or 6 sheets in here, it's not too difficult to punch through. If you're short of time in your craft room, and some of you have told me that you are, then this figure of 8 method works really well on larger journals like this. This is the one that I filled last year with lots of different spreads, and you can hardly see the string on the inside. I like to see it on the outside down the spine, so I knot it on the back. This is the October one I did last year. I really enjoyed doing that one. You might like to check that one out. I'll leave a link down below. So I take a piece of string that's about 3 times the width of the little notebook, maybe just a little bit extra on top. I've threaded up my needle, and just before we bind it together, I'm going to add some extra robustness and structure by gluing those tops of the pages together. I'm using a tacky glue here. You might have seen me use this in the earlier videos when we worked on steps 1 and 2 of making this envelope folder. And I'm taking each of those little flaps and just gluing them together. If you wanted to, then now would be the time to trim them down so that when you put the last piece over, it's all really neat and you don't see any of the extra edges. I don't mind seeing those extra pieces. This is a junk journal project after all, and there's something natural, I think, about allowing some of those pieces to show. What do you think? Leave me a comment down below. Should it look absolutely perfect, or do we like just a little bit of reality to show in our projects? And to bind the pages together, I'm putting the needle through the middle hole from the front to the back, and then either side of that hole, it really doesn't matter which, I'm sending the needle back through. So it's a very quick way of bringing the pages together. We now have the needle at the front again, and I'm going to go back through the middle hole. And just one tip at this point, if you can, is try not to split the string with the needle as you pass it through. It's just a little bit easier to tighten it up and make it neat at the end if it really does pass through that middle hole without splitting whatever thread you're using. We've come back through the other hole, so you can see we now have a figure of 8. And I'm just playing with the length of some of the string so that I get enough to make a tie in the middle at the end. So both of the ends are now at the front, and I like to just do a little bit of a knot and then a bow. I can take those little pegs off at this point in time. They're always quite useful for helping keep the pages in position. So very easy to finish our little junky notebook, and I think this is something a little bit different to add to our project. We can trim off the excess of the string, and we have something slightly natural as a bind there that goes with the flower, the botanicals. It goes with the fawn of the aged papers and the font here. So a gentle palette that goes with, I hope you think, the rest of that compendium collection papers that we've used to decorate the various envelopes and parts of our envelope folder today. A neat and tidy seam, as I mentioned, because the papers are hidden at the back. It's always fun to include tags in a folio or folder like this. This is a botanical one I made with washi tape and some mauve paint in the background. I want to share how to make these tags today, and I've been using some acrylic paints which contrast nicely with the vintage, but I think work really well. They're very, very easy. I've been using these beautiful shades of paint. I need an acrylic block. This is going to be incredibly easy, and also some cardstock. It doesn't really matter what colour cardstock, maybe something buff coloured, neutral would be perfect, but really just pull out whatever you have, what you want to make best use of in your stash, because the first thing we're going to do to that cardstock is cover it up with a couple of fantastically vintage book pages. I just love the character of some of these books. County Library, you can just feel the age and the number of hands that have been on the pages. So I'm taking a couple of roughly appropriate size pages, and I'm going to put those on the front of the cardstock. They do jut out a little bit, so they're a little bit wider than that cardstock, and I'm also going to have a gap in the middle. They're not quite big enough, so pages that aren't perfectly sized work really well for this. I'm simply attaching a couple of pages to the cardstock with tacky glue, allowing that lovely ripped edge to stay. We'll have it just up here on the tag when we cut up the card, and this is what we're going to use to add some colour to. So we'll have the strength of cardstock, we'll have the beauty of beige aged book pages, and then we'll have that contrast of, in some cases, metallic acrylic colours. And I just love the combination. I love the fun of the play of making these tags. I love the magic, they're all unique. And I love some of the cutting and the gluing that we do in the process. So I just thought I would share this with you today and really suggest that you have some fun playing with whatever supplies you have and maybe making something similar like this. I'm cutting them down with my Fiskars trimmer, making them about 7 centimetres wide, and that means for the piece of A4 cardstock that I started with, I get about 3 tags out of the half like this. So I get 6 tags in all. I'll trim that down in a second where the paper jutted out. In fact, let's do that now. I like just sitting trimming paper as well. I like cutting and snipping, and I don't know whether that's something that you love too. It's just an incredibly relaxing thing to do, but taking my ruler, measuring, trimming down tags like this, it's all just part of that relaxing time that we have in our craft room. We escape to our little world, and if that makes any sense at all, please do leave me a comment down below. Are you someone who's obsessed with paper and cutting things up, playing with colour, stitching pages together? Let me know. And now that we have our base tags, it's time to add some colour, and to do that today I'm going to use this acrylic block, making life incredibly easy and fun, and I've chosen some colours from my Arteza set of acrylics. These are metallics in shades of bronze. I think I have olive green and chartreuse there. Shades that are, I think, of a family with the various papers that we used in making pockets, and also that vintage dictionary page that we put on the back of the folder. So just mindful of some of the other colours in the palette that we've used so far. I'm taking those paints and somewhat over liberally adding dots to the acrylic block. I really should have put a little bit less on. I think I was just getting carried away today, having too much fun. But really there aren't any rules. Just add as many dots as you like. I'm maybe suggesting limit it to 3 colours, but I'm going to take that block and with a few drops of water, literally just a few to make the acrylic blend together, I'm going to squish it down on the tag and create just this gorgeous, sumptuous blend of shades. I like watching it merge, I like watching it squish, and I like to see what emerges. So I'm taking that block, gently pressing and easing it up from one side, which will give me some lovely texture as the paint emerges. I'm adding colour at the bottom of the tag as well, and again peeling it back slowly so that the gooiness of the paint forms these beautiful ridges. What colours would you use for your tags in your envelope folder? Let me know in a comment down below. Would you go with those aged colours of brown and gold and green, or maybe something more vibrant? It's a technique I used in an art journal page a few weeks ago, and some of you made some really nice comments and said that you enjoyed having a play, so I just thought I would share it today. I'm adding some washi at the top of the tag in a cross hatch of black and brown, which also goes with the colours, so trying to keep things fitting together. And that will go in the pocket that we put actually on the left hand side of the folder. And now it's time that we have our tags, we have our pockets, we have the envelope flip flap in the middle, and even some extra focal point. It's time to stick these in, add our ephemera, and really pull it all together. I start by pulling out my Pritt stick, so a really nice strong glue, and just have to accept that I'm going to cover up and hide that beautiful little butterfly on the back there. I was chatting with my friend Barbara at 49 Dragonflies this week, and she told me she's doing a lovely video, a simple page using butterflies. So if you like collage and flora and fauna, check out her channel. I'm sure that video will be fantastic. I will of course leave a link to her channel in the description box down below. I'm checking that the notebook fits neatly in the pocket just like this, and that it doesn't peep out over the top of the folder. So worth checking before that glue on the pocket dries. Then I've reached into one of my little envelopes of ephemera, and I'm choosing a few little features here, a few little journaling cards, all coming from the same compendium collection. You can see the full page here. All I've done is just sit there, choose a few, cut them out and round the corners. I really like this one with script on it, and I like this chap here. What do you think? I have a growing appreciation for all things vintage and certainly aged photos like that. So if you know of any good supplies, or you have any favourites that you like to include in your own projects, do let me know in a comment down below, because I would love to learn where I could source some others and really just see some other varieties of vintage designs. I'm following through with the decoration with one other piece from the compendium collection, but of course you could use anything that you have in your stash or from other book pages. I'm using some of these little tabs, cutting them out and adding them to the front of the pockets. So you can see that I've cut out a few already. Some of them are on cardstock. Some of them I cut out and added some robustness to by sticking them to just an old book page, and I've made a hole in some of them so that I can increase the texture. The lovely feel of ribbon here is what I'm going to add to some of those little pieces. So I'm trimming the end with my scissors, just giving it a little bit of an angle and creating a parallel one probably 6 inches down. So just a short piece of ribbon there that I'm going to thread carefully through that hole. I go front to back, and I'm not sure if that's right. Am I meant to go back to front? How are you actually meant to put ribbon through a little tag like this? Please do let me know. Leave a comment down below. I'm sure that I'm getting it wrong, but I'm not sure I mind. It looks cute. What do you think? That will be stuck to the front of one of the pockets, and I'm also going to bring through the string, bring through that natural element into one of the other little tabettes. So I'm doing the same thing, folding the string in half and feeding it through from front to back. And this will give us just a little bit more extra interest as we decorate that pocket on the right hand side. Maybe that string is a bit too long. I think it needs trimming down. I probably need quite strong glue to keep these to the front of the pocket. And the contrast of that compendium collection paper, the vintage and the glossy book page is something that I quite like. I prefer that from having all vintage book papers when I make a project like this. But of course it's whatever works for you, whatever you prefer. The last little tabette there is more horizontal, so I'm adding that, keeping the interest, keeping the contrast, but keeping the theme as we bring it together. On top of our little book page from our William Shakespeare book of plays, I'm adding the pocket that we made in the first video of this series, making sure that that's neatly placed on the left hand side, and this will be filled with as many of those tags as you like to put in. I have absolutely gorgeous washi tape, and I'm going to add a little bit extra at the top, and you guys have told me that you like washi. Do any of you not like washi, or are you washi addicts? I'm having a lot of fun adding pattern to projects and also making that ridge, the fold in the left hand side of the folder, just that little bit stronger. So you can see that I have actually overlapped the fold with the washi, just doing that with my left hand here, and that just adds a tiny little bit more robustness. I've made sure that it's lined up underneath one of those lines of text as well. I've made some of those tags in other colour combinations, and I really like this vibrant red and gold, so I'm just popping 2 or 3 tags into that left hand pocket. They've got some slightly different washi at the top of the tags, but all in sort of darker colours, black and white. And I'm also bringing through the same decoration, the same collage on the left hand side pocket. Just so you know, in next month's videos I'm going to be doing a lot more collage. I'm going to be playing with bits of paper, bringing it together and having some easy relaxing fun. So do subscribe if you like collage and you like playing with paper, because I do have a lot of fun coming up. This little gap on the left here is shouting "fill me with washi," so I'm adding some with text, which I really like. And this is my easy envelope journal folder with pockets and vintage papers. If you've enjoyed this video, then do give me a thumbs up and check out my video how to make an easy junk journal for someone special. I really think you'd enjoy it, and I really do look forward to seeing you soon.